So, little bit of a disappointing Super Sunday, Old Firm Sunday, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday, watched the Old Firm game in a pub by myself. Had a couple of pints, very, very boring. Very, very boring. And then caught the Liverpool Arsenal game later on. First half at my girlfriend's auntie's party, and then the second half in the car and on the phone. Not a lot to talk about in either game, to be honest. I want to go through Liverpool Arsenal first because that's the game that has the goal. I don't think there's too much in depth to really go into about the Old Firm. I'll touch on that after before we go through the rest of the Premier League fixtures. But let's start at Anfield. Again, not a lot in it. Arsenal probably come and start as the better team and kind of have the better first half. If again we look at the momentum graph on FootMob, it kind of shows that in the first half. To be honest, bar up until about just before the goal, the 66th, 67th minute, the more momentum's kind of with Arsenal in that game. And it did feel like that. But I wouldn't say it felt like Arsenal were really putting Liverpool under pressure, weren't putting Liverpool under threat. Overall, I just thought that was Arsenal that we've seen last season and the season before. Just that little less impetus there to go and get that win at a big ground at Anfield when you're quite rightly going to be title contenders, who I was considering even in my predictions, my revised ones that I'm going to do, potentially putting them top. I think that's changed a little bit after this game. But it wasn't like they peppered Alisson. I'm not trying to say Liverpool peppered, Raya, because they didn't. Neither side peppered anyone. And I know it's a big game, so you're probably not really typically going to do that, particularly away from home. But they're still missing it. They're still missing it a wee bit. And will they get it as the season goes on? I don't know. I mean, if we look at the starting 11, I know Saka's out. I know Odegaard's out. If you look at it there on FootMob, for those of you that are watching, for those that are listening, it's got all the players up and it has the ratings. And a lot of Arsenals are in that orange kind of 6 rated out of 10 to, I don't think anyone's touching 7, 6.8. Calafiore looks like he's got the highest rating. Sorry, Rice does at 6.9. It's kind of how I felt Arsenal were. It was. You felt a bit dangerous. You felt a bit nervy as a Liverpool fan, particularly from the set pieces, which they took an age every time to take and set up, and you thought, oof, but Liverpool handled it superbly. Kanate handled it immensely. Joe Gomez, when he came on, handled it immensely. And Virgil van Dijk has just been an absolute colossus for Liverpool in the last 2 games, and it's not as if that's like a shock or anything like that. We all know who he is and what he does, but I think this season, I'm getting the feeling that, Liverpool are going to have a lot of goals. We know Isak's been announced, which I'll get into just after we talk about the game. But I think if Liverpool are going to be a little bit more open in these other games, Van Dijk's going to be the man that's going to lead them to the title, probably along with Alisson there being at the back. We're going to need them to be really, really strong this season. So Liverpool handled it well. And then as both Slot and Arteta said in their press conferences after the game, it's a moment of magic. Those games are just a moment of magic, and it's a Szoboszlai free kick. It's Cristiano Ronaldo-esque, the way he steps up to it, the way he hits it with the dip and the curl and everything on it, and it's a screamer. It's a goal deserving of winning a game like that. And I'd had a few beers messaging my mates Greg and Hobbes on the way home on WhatsApp about it, and I was like, Szoboszlai is Liverpool's most important player, and obviously quite rightly they were kind of saying to me Alisson and Van Dijk and stuff like that. And but I really think in these last 3 games, you're seeing everyone thought with Wirtz being bought for Liverpool, that Szoboszlai, the media were just like, Szoboszlai loses his place, Szoboszlai's out. And the whole time I thought, he plays him all the time. And I think, we talk about all these players and all these things that they need to have, and particularly going forwards, your flair players and your goal scorers and things like that. Liverpool have a guy there in Szoboszlai that just runs around and is always there, does his job to absolute perfection. He might not be great on the ball all the time. He really isn't. He frustrates me a little bit. But you can't not put a guy in your team that just runs around and is just at it for 90 minutes, and he can go and he can go and he can go. I think I made a joke last season that I'd love to be his missus, because I don't think he could stop, man. He could probably go all night. And it's so underrated. And a lot of these videos have been talking about how the game is not that complicated, and it's not. And when you have multiple guys that can do that in your squad, which Liverpool have, but Szoboszlai kind of embodies that, and Liverpool, and It's incredible. It really, really is. I don't think there's anything too much to say on Arsenal. I just think again, it feels very samey. It does feel very samey. And we're 3 games in, and they were 6 from 6. They've played played 3 now, lost 1, and going away to Anfield's not a terrible thing, but there's just a little bit of impetus if they didn't quite go and get it. I think not just because I'm a Liverpool fan. I think Liverpool was a lot more fascinating. The fact that we've talked about how everyone's talked about how they're so open against Bournemouth, how it was a bit similar against Newcastle. But I said this about Slot last season, and I've been saying it. He's very, very, very adaptable. I'm not about to sit here and say he wanted it to be that open against Bournemouth. He wanted it to go that way against Newcastle. Of course you don't. You always want to be compact and be solid. But I think he comes into this game knowing they're going to have to be extra compact and extra solid. And you've seen the team able to do that. You see us withstand it. It was a lot more, it was a flat 4, I noticed, off the ball, with the midfielders come and break us down with the 4 behind them. It was just an understanding of what this game is going to need and how it's going to be, and we can adapt to it. And we still have our principles there, of course you do, but we're going to adapt and we're going to play this game this way. So, look, I expect Liverpool to tighten things up. As I said, I expect a lot of teams to tighten things up. I mean, I think the next international break, as you come back, it's getting players back in rhythm again with the club staff who's been injured in international duty. So I think the next 3 is a bit similar to this. It's just get through it. Can you get points on the board when you're not playing well? And then after that, the second international break is when everything kind of clicks into place. But really, really, really good from Liverpool. Slot, I don't think he gets a lot of credit. As much focus for what he does in the game and how he changes little tactical things and who he brings on and when he brings on. And I thought Arsenal subs yesterday were going to be what made the difference against Liverpool. They bring on Mosquera early doors. Saliba gets injured, but they bring on Eze, they bring on Odegaard. And they bring on the young lad Downman, obviously 89th minute, doesn't really count. Liverpool bring on Curtis Jones, Gomez and Chiesa and Endo, again 89th minute. And if you look at those names, you're back in the Arsenal bench and those players come on and be better. But, I just listened to Gary Neville's podcast talking about the game and he was right. Liverpool actually got better when those subs came on, which was really, really interesting. And I didn't feel like Eze and Odegaard made too much of a difference to it. And I thought that's where the game would be won and lost. I knew it would be tight coming into about the 60th minute, about 0-0. And it went the other way. And I think maybe that has a bit to do with Liverpool being at home and the Anfield crowd got up and everything like that. And it was just an all-round, really adaptable, different type of performance in Liverpool. And it could have easily gone 0-0, albeit a world-class strike from Szoboszlai. But I was thinking when I was writing down my notes for this video, going to use this as like a context for what I think we'll see from Liverpool and a lot of the top teams that we'll see. Is I remember playing just local team North Berwick, not this level at all, and there was a team in our league called Calvary Park who were excellent. They were great on the ball, they moved the ball around, they were really well drilled, really well coached team, won the league consistently. And when you played against them, you knew what it was going to be. You're going to have to really run around, you're going to have to be switched on in your position and be tight and be compact with each other. And that's not getting a lot of coaching either at the time. It's not like we're getting coached or drilled to be like that. You just kind of knew that as a group because you knew what the game was going to be like. And then there was a team we used to play in our league, I remember, Edinburgh United, who were always at the bottom of the league, and you just kind of showed up to the game and you could be a bit more open, you could walk around, you maybe didn't need to run back there or be as tight as compact there, because you kind of just knew you were a lot better than them. And fine, they might get a goal, but you knew you were going to get 3. And look, it doesn't always go that way in football, don't get me wrong, but my point of the example is, I think we're seeing that with Liverpool in these last 3 games. Again, I think he would like them to be a lot tighter and everything like that, but again, most adaptable manager in the league for me, and it's 9 points from 9 for Liverpool, albeit people saying we're not performing very well, but I'll take it. Look, I tweeted this, I grew up watching Man United do it every single week and having to deal with that in school and everything like that and thinking, you were shite yesterday, and I'm saying the same things to the Man United fans and they're not caring, they're getting the win and they're going and winning all those league titles. I've seen it with Celtic and Rangers. I'm growing up around Rangers fans, family, so I see it both sides of Celtic and Rangers in the past where they're maybe not playing well, but they get the goals in the last minute, they win games. It's about getting the 3 points. It really, really is. I thought Kerkez was a lot better yesterday, again, in a bit more of a compact shape. He'd obviously listened, he'd switched on. I said a lot about Wirtz. I think he's struggling to adapt to it. I obviously said he'd be the Ballon d'Or winner. I think he looks like he might be a bit more of like a link-up 10. I thought he'd come in and be a 10 that was like a goal scorer and playing, and look, he might. We're 3 games in and he's going to adapt to the league, but he looks more like a link-up player. I've seen a thing on Twitter about like, people are slagging off Wirtz. Here's a compilation of what he did in the game yesterday, little moments, little turns, spinning away from people, playing passes through, and all those things. I just think the expectation that you put on him and you look at him, and that's why you don't want to get caught up in the whole transfer fee thing and stuff like that, is that you got to take the player for what they are and what they're doing, and I think he'll click and get a bit better. There's times where he takes too many touches, but look, St James's Park away is probably the hardest place to go at the moment in the league, certainly in the top kind of 3, and then playing against Arsenal, who are big, physical, strong midfield, it's going to be tough for it. But Footmob have given him a 7.6 rating. He had moments, like I say, just being a little bit too harsh on him, but overall I think he'll adapt to the league quite well, and I think he'll be fine. Maybe not quite a Ballon d'Or winner. So yeah, I think, again, just to wrap it up, Roy Keane said this in Sky Sports after the game. Listen, Liverpool are going into the dressing room and looking around saying we didn't play great there, but again, we've got another 3 points and we're 9 from 9, and Keane said I've been part of many teams that done that and won titles. Neville has said that on his podcast today. He's just been there, he's been a part of it, he gets it, he sees what's happening, and that is ultimately what it's about. It really, really is. I don't think I've got anything else to say about the game because there wasn't really too much to go on about the game. Isak's been confirmed late last night, early morning, whatever you want to call it. Just obviously just the finer details to be solidified. It's been a process that's taken far too longer. I think that deal's been agreed for quite a long time, and I think Newcastle have just said, look, let us just get our replacement and we'll get someone in, and then we can all announce it together. And it's kind of got to the last day. It's taken that long because they've been so much of a shambles, but that's scary to think because this Liverpool side already have goals in them. What's that? 4 against Bournemouth, 3 against Newcastle, and then 1 yesterday against Arsenal. 8 goals in the 3 games. So yeah, like I say, they need to tighten things up. I think they showed yesterday they can do that when they're going to be asked to do that, and they'll get better at it as the season goes. But that's a scary addition. Look, Ekitike's been absolutely brilliant. He has been. You forget he's only 22, 23 coming into it. Isak will be the starting 9. There's no question. You're not signing him to rotate him with Ekitike. But one strength Liverpool had last season was the options that they could have off the bench attacking wise with Nunez and Jota, Diaz and Gakpo rotating around. Chiesa coming on. He doesn't like Chiesa. We know he doesn't. Chiesa just still looks miles off it. He gets the goal against Bournemouth. Great. Buzzing. I loved it. It was hilarious. But you don't want him to be your first attacking sub. You just don't. So it's massive for Liverpool. You can see a lot of fans are deflated. A lot of messages from me saying, I can't believe you guys have got it. I can't believe it's actually happened. It's for less than 150, but like it was, I did doubt myself, did doubt it the last week or so, but I felt like it was always going to come as soon as Newcastle signed the boy from Stuttgart. You could see they were trying to buy everybody in the meantime. It was coming, right? It was coming. So huge to Liverpool. Will they get Guéhi over the line? What other deals will get done on deadline day? I'm going to do kind of a revised Premier League predictions video that will be up next week that will kind of go through everything based on the transfers and kind of maybe change a few of my picks, which I'm definitely going to change after seeing these first 3 games, and that's what it's all about in football. So we'll take it from there. We'll see what happens at Liverpool. Let's go on to the Old Firm then. I wrote down here, first 30 minutes, there was 0 shots on goal. Let's have a little look on the Footmob, what the stats kind of end up being on goal. You get 4 shots from Rangers, 5 from Celtic. It says there's 0 big chances there. Celtic just get a bit more possession with 59%. Look, there's been a lot of talk about Rangers, more so than Celtic, with Russell Martin and everything like that. Quite rightly so. It's not been great. You're going to be in the headlines, and Celtic are winning league games, but Celtic didn't look great yesterday either. They really, really did not look great, and I think that each team is at least a level down from where they were even last season, and in particularly Celtic. They've dropped at least a level or two, and look, they've lost the likes of Kuhn and Kyogo, and you lose 2 top players and you don't replace them with the same quality level of people. Of course that's going to happen. It seems quite obvious to say that, but yeah, they're just... Look, Celtic will win the league. They'll walk the league, right? This Rangers team ain't keeping up with them. I know Hearts are doing really well. I'm going to do a separate video on the Scottish games and go into Hearts and stuff like that. That'll be out tomorrow. But like, Celtic are still going to walk the league. I just thought they were really poor in that game. I think that's probably, in my time, the worst Old Firm I think I've ever watched. Quality-wise, there wasn't even too much bite to it, which I know is lost a lot in football these days. Don't get me wrong, I know that's not how it is, but yeah, you had your time period not too long ago with like Morelos and Scott Brown and stuff, and that kind of kept it going, but it's not been like that for a while. But it was really, really poor game, really poor quality. I'm just going to see what I've put on my notes. I mean, I was kind of hoping for this to be a real big kind of video with Rangers Celtic and Liverpool Arsenal. Both games ended up being quite shite, but one thing I noted was, he didn't want Tav. He dropped Tav. Now he needs Tav. Rangers fans have been saying for a little while they don't want Tav. You guys need him. You need him there at right back. He's massive. He started with Gassama off the right, which I think Neil McCann picked up on, which is really interesting. Gassama's been so much more effective off the left in the games that we've seen. I feel like Jiga for Rangers can be a bit of a... He's kind of like Kanate. He's either an absolute bomb scare, he just can't get past him. He's tight to 1v1, he's strong, he's fast, he's physical, which is really interesting. The goal from the sort of header, I don't know where Kasper Schmeichel was going in that at all. Absolute shambles. I thought Celtic's midfield would win the game. Thought they were poor. There was no creativity or anything in there. I mean, they were just overall poor. Both teams were really, really poor. Asgard for Rangers, I haven't seen anything so far to suggest he's decent at all. I don't get it. He just kind of floats around on the pitch there. And yeah, like I said, there wasn't a bite. It just felt like there wasn't anyone in there that didn't quite get what the game was about. And both managers, after a poor week in Europe, just... You can see that. You can see there was no spark there. They're kind of wanting the break. They're done. Let the noise die down a bit. Come back. And look, Celtic will be fine because they'll be sound domestically. I wouldn't be worried about it. Rangers are obviously the ones that will be seeing. So I'll put a poll out after the game saying after that result, the Rangers fans still want Russell Martin gone. And the majority quite clearly voted that there was yes. I think there was about 40 votes. And I think it got about 60-70% that yes, we want Russell Martin still gone. So he's got a point there. He gets the break. He gets to regroup. I don't see him being sacked during the break. And then they got to come back and see what happens. And like I say, I don't think I'm going to focus on Celtic really too much at all this season, apart from maybe in the European games, because they're just going to go and comfortably beat all the other teams in the league, aren't they? They really, really are. So that is that for that. Let's get into the Prem then. It started off with Chelsea and Fulham. Watched that whole game there. Again, not really a lot in it. The most mental thing was the lap injury at the start of the game, and then Nicholas Jackson's been called back from Chelsea after going all the way to Bayern Munich, basically doing his medical, and then them saying, actually, now you're coming back, mate, because we need you. And there's been a lot made about Isak and his situation and how he's kind of gone about it. We know Vissa's going about it the same way right now to get his move from Brentford. But that, if you're Jackson, like, you've clearly been told you're surplus to requirements, off you go, waiting to see what comes in, waiting to see what happens. And I understand from Chelsea's point of view, they're like, we can't get someone in this moment in time, so we want to keep you. But like, if you're Nicholas Jackson, are you even wanting to go back now, man? Like, I don't know. You don't really have a choice, I guess. But let's see what happens today. Maybe something's happened at the time of recording this video. By the time this goes out, and yous are all saying he's already gone. But I don't know. It's just a bit of a mad one. From Chelsea. I mean, the goal that was disallowed for Fulham. I mean, what are they doing? There's a referees, right? We've all played the game, and I don't think referees, like, they can't win, right? Because no matter what happens, the decision's typically always wrong based on one team or another. But the worst refs are the ones when you're playing the game and you're watching the game that feel like they need to insert themselves on the game. And I think we've got a lot of that in the Premier League with Howard Webb leading it, that they feel like they need to get involved, they want to get involved. There's the show on Sky Sports, it's the Ref Watch show. I just straight up refuse to watch it. Going through all the decisions and that, like, why? Like, I get this, we're trying to get a bit more transparency and stuff like that. Like, yeah, but why? We're given a platform to them, and the game should be about the game, and the referee is there just to mediate it and make the calls when it's fouls and stuff like that. And of course, people are going to get things wrong. We're human, whether you've got VAR or not. But I just feel like there's a lot of ego involved in the Premier League referee stuff at the moment. They haven't got it right at all, and it's really, really frustrating. And, Marcus Silva says, at the game, it's hard enough to compete with a team that spends millions and billions, and we're now also competing against VAR as well. And he's spot on. It's just really, really poor. And like I've said, we've all played, and when you have the ref with the big ego and you're playing the game, you're thinking, look, mate, the game's not about you here. The game is about all of us on the pitch and the players on the pitch, and you're there to mediate it and do your best to get things right and wrong. And we know how hard a job it is, and the abuse that you get from the players, from the managers, from the fans. Like, I get it. It must be a a difficult job, but really, really poor. Even for the second goal, it hit João Pedro's arm before the cross then comes in from Chalobah off the Fulham player's arm. Is it a penalty? Yes, it's a penalty. He's got his arm up here. It's a penalty. But it hit João Pedro's hand beforehand. So it shouldn't go down as a penalty. It's just an overall shambles there. And look, I'm going to dive into Chelsea a little bit on the revised prediction video because it looks like Garnacho's in. They're just mental. Just the amount of change that we see with Chelsea is absolutely mental. I don't know if it'll work. I think we'll only be able to tell 2-3 years down the line from here if this whole kind of rotation of all these players that seem to all kind of be the same and around about the same level with not too much of a progression on, people coming in that are better and just kind of trading people off and buying them here for cheap and then selling them on. Who knows? They're just a bit bizarre. They're a bit weird. They kind of always have been since Abramovich has come in, It's always been about winning there, and he used to sack managers all the time if they didn't win trophies and stuff like that. And then under Bowley, it's just kind of got even weirder with all these transfers moving them around. So it's a good result for them. They've just been weird in the 3 games. I think, again, that sums them up as a club. I can't quite get a read on them so far, but we'll see how they're looking after that second international break where it all really kicks in. And we'll go from there. So yeah, good result for Chelsea. United get the 3 points against Burnley. I kind of always knew they were going to do that. I should have picked them in my last man standing. I said I was going to. I didn't. I went for Forest, which we'll get into in a second. But, United go and win 3-2 against Burnley. Look, we can all laugh at it and we can all joke about it and send messages into our chats. I watched the highlights of the game. I was kind of watching the BBC scores roll in, and United absolutely battered Burnley, didn't they? Especially in the first half, they battered them, and they're not putting the ball in the back of the net. And that's always going to be a problem, and it's always going to be a problem when your goalkeepers are who they are. And look, let's see if they get a couple over the line today. Talk about Martinez maybe coming in from Villa. It is an upgrade. Don't get me wrong, it is an upgrade, but still a bit dodgy there. Your keeper's just going to be an issue all season. I've said that. If you're not putting your chances away and you're only getting a goal, you're not getting a goal, and the other team can create chances, you're in a little bit of trouble, and they need to sort that out. And Ruben Amorim looks like the most stressed man again in football. After that, they win the game. It's a bit. You've seen that from Bruno all the time. It's over celebrating and stuff like that. Look, it's a last minute winner and you've won the game and the pressure's on you and you're at home. I'm not trying to be like a celebration police, but I've seen that from this Man United squad a lot in the last couple of years under Solskjaer, particularly under Ten Hag, where you win those games and they celebrate like that and you're thinking, right, is that really where you are? You know what I mean? Is that where you are? And I guess they are. And Danny Murphy made a really, really good point on Match of the Day when his breakdown of United in that game. And he said, look, it's not about tactics all the time. It's about who wants to go and affect the game. And he broke down a lot of places where Mason Mount, again, was really integral to that. The energy that United had, the press, the everything about them, particularly in the first half. And I've said that we haven't seen that from Man United in a while going forwards. They've got quality there with Mbeumo, and Cunha obviously gets injured. I put him in my fantasy team and captain him. Disaster. Mount looks really good. Sesko ain't getting in that team right now. No chances he's dropping Mason Mount, and it might be a good thing for Sesko maybe just to learn and get in the training and Amorim to analyse him and stuff like that. But it's a good front three, and look, it's 3 points to them. It's needed. They can go to the break. Amorim's got it. He can take a big, puff of his cheeks, and like I say, see if they get a keeper over the line here. But it's 3 points to them, and fair enough, off you go then. Surprise result of the weekend for me is the West Ham beating Forest 3-0. I picked Forest in my last man standing. Just knowing, I don't think anyone saw that coming. And look, this is how football works, right? This is how it works. You get a result, you get a good result like that against a team like Forest, who've started off well, who are really good last season. And absolutely fair play to West Ham. I thought Paqueta was all but a done deal to Aston Villa. Then I seen he was playing, and then he does the celebration when he picks the phone up, he throws it away and he kisses the badge. I guess he's staying then. Let's see what happens today. But they'll need that. If they lost him, that's a real killer blow to them, quality-wise, a player, and also just that'll be a real blow to the squad if that did happen. And look, Forest have got a bit of unease there with the whole Nuno situation, and let's see what happens with that over the course of the international break. I'm sure he'll be sitting down and having a chat with the owner, and let's see if he goes or if he doesn't. Mourinho's been sacked. We know Ange's out there as well. They're kind of the two men being linked with that team there. I mean, God, Brendan Rodgers at Celtic, who knows if that comes up. I'm sure he'd love to jump ship and go for that. So yeah, let's see what happens with Forest. But great result for West Ham, fair play to you. They really, really needed that, and that's definitely shock result of the weekend. I think the next one I wanted to touch on was Wolves and Everton. Everton win 3-2. I watched that match of the day. Look, with Ndiaye and Grealish and Dewsbury Hall, they've got some forward line there and a lot of freedom and a lot of adaptability. And I don't want to use the word like modern attackers, modern players, but they really, really are. And I mean, look, Grealish in particular looks like he's just got his freedom and his joy back, doesn't he? And they asked Moyes, like, what do you tell him to do on the pitch and that? He says, look, I don't need to tell Jack a lot. And Moyes is really good with that. Moyes is really, really good. He's the epitome of just simplifying football for me. You know, when you can say his team's a little bit boring-y, a little bit, but with that front three, it's not. It's free, it's explosive. Look, I used to not mind watching Moyes' Everton team with Tim Cahill and stuff like that. It's a different era of football and a different time. But he does just simplify the game. And look, as I said, Grealish has got his freedom and his joy back. Haaland puts the post up. You know, Jack De Bruyne does it again. He fell out there with Pep, and some players just don't suit managers in certain systems. And look, Grealish was there and he won the treble and he was instrumental for them in that season. But it's a long-term overall thing. Maybe playing under the guy like Pep, who's very much, this is where you need to be and where I want you to be, and this is what I want us to do, and this is how we hurt the other team. And by the way, quite rightly, with what Pep's won in his career, I'm going to get on to City and Pep in a second. But yeah, just great for Grealish. Dewsbury Hall, hell of a strike to make it 3-1. It's a great bit of creativity from all three of those, the front three that I noticed for the second goal. And yeah, just all round, Everton are going to be absolutely sound. That Wolves really struggling. Strand Larson doesn't play. Talks of him going to Newcastle. We'll see what happens. But if they lose him, man, they're already in trouble anyway. If they lose him, they're in a lot of trouble. So not a good time to be a Wolves fan. And yeah, great result for Everton there. Great result for Everton. Let's get on to City then. They get beat 2-1 against Brighton. When I seen they went 1-0 up and Haaland scored, I thought Brighton haven't been too good at the start of this season. Not a lot to say about it, apart from I don't know where the defenders are for the second Brighton goal. Absolutely not a clue. It just it looks all over the place. You know, Trafford again makes some good saves in that game, and Guardiola says he's going to stick with him. We'll see if they get Donnarumma over the line today, if they're going to go for him. But just they've lost that aura a little bit, City. They have lost that aura, and I text the group yesterday, again after a few beers, but does have a little bit of a feeling of this dominance of the whole kind of Pep Guardiola era is coming to its end and is at its end. And obviously we know he signed this 2-year deal. He potentially goes at the end of this season, if not the season after. He's never had to rebuild the team and rebuild. Like he's proven that he can win titles, right? He wins 4 titles in a row, don't get me wrong, but it's with a squad with the odd addition here, but to completely go and rebuild it, the signings they made hasn't been great. So yeah, I tipped them to win the league. Again, we're only 3 games in. City typically do start a bit slower. They're not always like out the gate, boom, running away with it. So you never do know with them, but it's starting to wane for me, that thought process. Like I still think though they're going to absolutely be no problem for the top 4. I don't think with the quality of the players they have, the likes of Haaland and stuff up top. But in terms of a title push, let's see. I think they're going to be the weaker of the 3 actually after this, and let's see if Pep can get things going. There's a lot of weird things I've seen. Joey Barton saying on his little podcast thing about, you know, they're trying to do a lot to keep it going and keep it fresh for Pep. They brought in the backroom staff, Linders and Kolo Touré. You know, Kolo Touré's kind of going mad behind Pep, and you know, it was just interesting. Joey Barton saying, when in Pep's time, have you ever seen anyone else there on the sideline or on the dugout, kind of having the energy and bringing it, stuff like that? And it doesn't really feel like Pep, and I agree with him. So let's see. It's a disappointing defeat for them, and yeah, a lot of after obviously beating Wolves 4-0 and everyone kind of being like, oof. But I said it, Wolves are obviously going to be at the bottom of the league, and City should be beating them there. So what else do we have? Palace beat Villa 3-0. Guehi's goal, what a goal that is. If that is a goodbye present to Palace, that's a hell of a finish. Villa just been really, really poor, and there's a lot of talk about PSR hampering them and that. I'm not going to get into that, but just poor from Villa. Conchborough was out for Palace, absolutely. Spurs get beat 1-0 at home to Bournemouth. Bournemouth absolutely battered them, by the way. I had both teams to score in that on the coupon for that to do with the boys, but it was the 69th minute until Spurs get the first shot on target. Just looking at that, like, look, Liverpool played Bournemouth in the first game, and we talked about them being open and stuff like that, but look, the identity Areola's built there, absolutely sensational. They're going to come at you for 90 minutes with intensity and desire, and I worried a little bit for them with the players that they've lost this season. But it doesn't look like it's deterring them. It really, really doesn't look like it's going to deter them at all. And that is absolutely full credit to Areola for what he's created there. It really, really is something really special. And fair play to him. And Bournemouth fans will be absolutely buzzing Just to wrap up the rest of the results before we quickly look at the league table, Sunderland beat Brentford. It's huge. It's a last-minute winner. And look, Sunderland are making Stadium of Light difficult to go to, and that's what you have to do. To get beat by Burnley, obviously, that's a tough one. That's a 6-pointer, as you would call it. You're away from them. But look, they played West Ham, who I think will be down and around there. They beat them. They lose to Burnley, and then Brentford, who I think will be down and around there as well. Sunderland have gone and beat them, and that's all they can ask for. Look, when you show up against your Liverpools and your Cities and United, Spurs and stuff like that, you can maybe take it with a pinch of salt that you're going to get beat there. But when you're playing the teams that are going to be in and around you, beat them. And Sunderland so far are absolutely doing that. Leeds 0, Newcastle 0. I didn't even watch that game. I haven't actually even watched the highlights. I heard it was a really drab one. Newcastle lacking the goals. They've lost their 9. They've obviously got the boy in from Stuttgart. We'll see if they get anyone else in, like the likes of Strand Larsen and Vissa. So we'll see, but they obviously need some goals, and the suspension of Gordon and stuff like that didn't exactly help them out, did it? So yeah, just a bit of a 0-0. Leeds will probably take that, albeit being at home. But yeah, they'll take that there. So where are we looking at here with the league table? Come the end of the first 3 games. So as I said, Liverpool are 3 from 3. We're on 9. Chelsea actually sits second on 6 points. Arsenal third on 5. Spurs have got 4. Sorry, I'm talking absolute rubbish. That's the goal difference. Apologies. Liverpool first on 9. Chelsea second on 7. Arsenal third on 6. Spurs on 6. Everton on 6. Sunderland on 6. Bournemouth on 6. Palace on 5. United on 4. Yeah, moving all the way down there, it's pretty tight. Man City 13th. Man City having a worse start to the season than Manchester United are, who are apparently in a crisis and Amarin's in trouble, as my mate Jambo said from Cali. So that's where it's always interesting what the media look at and how you look at it. But if we go down to the bottom 3, Fulham, Villa and Wolves. Fulham a bit hard done by. They should be sound. Villa will be sound. It's not been great. Wolves, who I said, already in a little bit of trouble. Newcastle and West Ham just above them there. But yeah, there's always a couple of surprising teams that are in the mix after the first kind of 6 to 10 games. I'm going to do a proper big kind of 10-game wrap-up with the boys. I'm going to try and see if I can get one in with the boys, actually, next week maybe, just to revise the predictions. We'll see. If not, it'll be me. But yeah, that'll do it before I just keep rambling on. As always, look, this is always a subscribers only. One a month will always go up on YouTube. This will be the one this month that goes up on YouTube. It will probably be the same with after the next 3 games. Before the next international break, the third one will go up on YouTube for free. So enjoy it while it's free. If you like these and you want to subscribe and you want to get them weekly and also other content and get stuff that comes early and get videos early, and as I grow, merchandise, stuff like that, get yourself signed up. It's about £5 a month. Links in the bio, links in the description. We're heading to the international break now. It's a real shame. Scotland obviously playing World Cup qualifiers and all that, so it has a little bit more to it, but God, I hate these two. You feel like you're just getting going. But let's get through it. Hope everyone has a good one. It's probably a good time if you got girlfriends, spend a bit of time with them without the Premier League and the Scottish football being on. Scottish video, looking at all the other games, it'll be out tomorrow on YouTube as always. It's Monday. Have a good start to the week. Still a bit sunny here, even though it's September 1st. We've not quite lost summer yet. And Liverpool are top of the league, and Isak's on his way. Get in. Until the next one, peace.